Hello there, Year 7. This is Mr. Anderson, and I'm just going to give you some advice and guidance on completing your project work on the development of the Newcastle Greenbelt. Now, the first topic that you completed in geography this year was called My Locality, and in this topic you learn about the different continents and countries of the world, and you also learn some basic geography skills such as compass directions, map reading, and land classification. In this project, you're going to learn about some new land classifications, specifically Greenbelt, Greenfield and Brownfield, what they are and why they're important to cities. This project is based on a real location and a real development. Newcastle Great Park is located in Gosforth. It is a huge housing and commercial development, and there is a current proposal to make it bigger. As with most topics in geography, however, there are good things about this development and bad things. And in this project, you're going to look at different land classifications and explore the whole argument about whether this development should actually happen. Whilst this is focusing on Newcastle, the development is part of a much bigger problem in the UK, which is housing shortage. The population of the UK is increasing year on year, and the rate at which houses are being built is not keeping up. As you will see, this is causing a whole host of social problems in the UK, and many people think the simple solution is to build more homes on Greenbelt and Greenfield sites. Now let's start with defining what a Greenfield site is. What do you think it means? So a Greenfield site is an area of land that's never been developed. It's never been built on, and it's never been used before. Now with this in mind, can you make an educated guess of what a brownfield site is? So a brownfield site is an area of land that has been developed in the past. You will see areas like this in and around Benwell, for example, where houses have been demolished and the land has been left and is now ready for development. The Stacks in the centre of Newcastle is another good example. That used to be a cinema. What about urban sprawl though? Break it down and think about what each word means. So urban sprawl is referring to the unrestricted and uncontrolled growth of the city. Remember, in geography, urban just means city. Now it's time for you to make some initial thoughts on the topic. Remember that green land can be anything from recreational land, agricultural land or forests and woodland. Have a think and make some notes on why some greenland areas are protected from being built on. Then think why it is important that the environment is protected, and then have a think about why it's important that new homes are built in Newcastle. Pause this presentation until you've wrote those down. Now in this section, you're going to find information about the importance of building new homes in the UK, what the land classification Greenbelt actually means, why some land is classified as Greenbelt, and also where Greenbelt land is in the local area. You will then have to use this information and your own knowledge to answer the 3 questions in the student response section. Now, it's a really important skill in geography that you read information that's given to you and start thinking like a geographer. Think about what it means. What is it telling you? Is there any evidence of cause and effect? What might that mean for the environment? How will this affect people? Who will benefit and who will suffer? Will the benefits outweigh the costs or will they not? What might be the long-term implications of what you've just learned? The first bullet point tells us that 3 million homes need to be built in the UK over the next 20 years, which is a truly enormous amount. The next point tells us that house prices are rising because there is a housing shortage at the moment, which is one of the reasons why 3 million new homes need to be built. Now, because there is a housing shortage, there is also an increase in homelessness and the amount of people living in what would be classified as unsuitable houses is increasing. So clearly we can see that more homes need to be built in the coming years. And you might be thinking how this current shortage is impacting people. They might be unable to find a house, they might not be able to afford a house. You might also be thinking about where all these extra 3 million homes are going to be built. This is where we get onto Greenbelts, and the next bullet point tells us that land designated as Greenbelt is land protected from being built on by UK law. However, development might be allowed with special permission from the government. This is land so special and so valued that nothing can be built on it. You might be thinking, what could make it so special? Why can it be so valued if there's nothing actually on it? What could make a government decide to build on this protected land? And then we learn about the Newcastle Great Park, which is a huge housing development in Gosforth. And this is important because the Great Park has been built on Newcastle's green belt. The government at the time had to give this development special permission to be built, and there are many positives and negatives to this decision, which you're going to learn about in this project. And then finally, we'll learn that the green belt classification has 5 main aims, and they are to stop urban sprawl, to prevent neighbouring towns from joining up, to protect the countryside, to protect historic towns and wildlife, and to allow urban areas to regenerate, which also means encouraging cities to build on their brownfield sites. Now let's look at those questions, and it's really important that you use the information provided to help you answer them. The first question is asking you to state what you believe to be the 3 most important aims of green belts. You will get the information from the final bullet point of information, and you simply need to decide which 3 of the 5 aims you think are the most important and to write them down. Now, this isn't a trick question. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's simply your judgment. Pause now for 2 minutes and give it a go. Okay then, I'm going to show you what my top 3 were. I had to protect the countryside, to allow urban areas to regenerate, and to protect historic towns and wildlife. Don't worry if yours are a little different to mine. As I've said, as long as your 3 come from those 5 sub bullet points on the information text box, it's absolutely fine. The next question is a little bit more tricky, and it wants you to suggest why the need to build more homes will put pressure on the greenbelt. Now this is where you need to start thinking like a geographer, and we've already learned that there needs to be 3 million new homes in the UK. Now all those extra homes have to go somewhere. This year you've learned that city centres are already very dense. There isn't a great deal of room for extra homes on this scale to be built. Ask yourself, is there space for thousands or even hundreds of new homes in your local area? There is a need for new land to be found, and with green areas you've got areas of land that some people might see as the perfect for development, because remember, there's nothing built on them. But remember that these are protected and can only be built on if the UK government thinks that the development is more important than protecting that particular piece of green space. Now when you are suggesting, you're coming up with a geographically backed idea and then giving a little bit of reason to explain your thinking. You could say something like, well, I suggest that it's been raining today because I can see puddles on the floor. Now pause for 3 minutes and have a go at answering that question. Suggest why the need to build more homes will put pressure on the greenbelt. So there you can see my model answer. Read through it, and what you can see is that I've given my initial idea and then I've backed it up with some geographical understanding. The final question wants you to explain 2 problems that a shortage of houses will cause for people in the UK. Now you've already learned that house prices are rising, homelessness is increasing, and the amount of people living in unsuitable homes is increasing. You have 3 problems here. And for this answer, you need to talk about 2 of them. When you're explaining something, what you need to do is show a good understanding of how something has or is occurring. This question is asking you to demonstrate an understanding of housing shortages. So think, how does a shortage of houses cause homelessness? How does it cause prices to rise? And how does it cause more people to live in unsuitable homes? Give yourself 4 minutes now to answer this question. Okay then, there's my model answer. And again, just look through the answer and see the structure that I've used. And you can see how I've used a really simple structure here to answer this question. I've given a problem and then I've explained it. And I've tried to show my understanding of the problem and then repeated it. Point, explain and repeat. Okay then, for this next part of the project, what you need to do is watch 3 YouTube videos and then use the information to fill in the blank spaces in the student response section. A really good tip here is to write down some subheadings which will guide you when you watch the videos. Look at the bold text in the student response box. From these videos, the first thing you'll need to look out for is information on why people believe the Greenbelt is important. You will see that you have to look out for a social, an economic and an environmental benefit. Remember that social is to do with people, families and communities. Economic is related to money, jobs and businesses, and the environment is anything to do with air, water, soil, trees, plants or wildlife. Make a note on these subheadings on your paper so that you know what to listen out for when you watch these videos. The next information to look out for are the reasons why some people want to build on the Greenbelt. Again, if you look under the bold text, you can see that you need to be looking out for particular information on the housing problem, on jobs, and reasons why some people believe that some Greenbelt land is just not worth saving. Make a note of these subheadings on your paper, and once you are ready, pause the PowerPoint and watch the videos. Take your time. If you don't manage to get all the information first time round, just watch them again. Okay then, now let's go through some answers. And if you haven't got the same ones as me, don't worry, there were many that you could have had. So a social benefit could be that it gives 30 million people access to the countryside, and this is important for recreation and making sure people have the freedom to leave built up urban areas and to explore. You could have also had things like, this is good for people's well-being. For economic opportunities, there weren't many. But what you could have seen from the videos and what you should have heard is that Greenbelt land is important agricultural land. And agricultural land and agriculture itself is farming. Now roughly 2/3 of all Greenbelt land is farmland. You will have saw lots of evidence of farms in those videos, and this is important for our food supply and our food security. Producing food here in Britain can give jobs to people in the food production industry and can keep some food prices low. Now, there was a number of environmental benefits, mostly from the first video. You could have had that they provide habitats for rare and endangered species, or that they reduce flood risk in urban areas, or can maybe even keep and absorb greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide stored so that they don't damage the environment. For the second section, you are looking for reasons why people want to get rid of the Greenbelt. People think it will solve the housing problem because it will give more space to developers to build houses. It will create jobs by giving jobs to people in the construction industries, whilst the homes are being built, and also shops and businesses that will locate near these new homes once they've been built. And finally, and this is an important argument, it's argued that not all Greenbelt is actually worth saving. Not all Greenbelt is beautiful open countryside providing habitats for wildlife and places to go and play. Some, as you saw in that first video, is regarded as scrub and actually has no social, economic or environmental benefit, so might as well actually be turned into something useful such as homes. Now you're being presented with a picture that you have to study. Being able to interpret and ask questions about an image is a key geographical skill. Think, what can you see? What geographical features can you see? Is there evidence of human and or physical geography here? Pause this PowerPoint for roughly 1 minute and make notes on what you can see. Okay then, now let's go through this picture. We can see a green area that seems to be enclosed by a fence. In the green area we can see grass and what looks like either a yellow flower or weed. In the background you can see trees and it looks quite rural, and you can tell that because there only seems to be one house in the area and there isn't any real sign of other buildings or infrastructure like motorways or railways. I would hope that you've noticed a sign and can make out that it says Save the Greenbelt. So this piece of land is obviously part of the Greenbelt in the UK, and this is telling you that it's under threat. Now we can't be sure, but we could probably make an educated guess that it's under threat from housing development. The UK is facing a big dilemma. There's obviously a need to build new homes, but there isn't a huge amount of space in our already overcrowded cities. This puts pressure on our green belt because it's land that could be used to meet our housing needs. However, as you've just learned, green belt is incredibly important to protect. Now, as geographers, it's up to you to look into these situations and to come to a well-rounded judgment. You now have to work through the questions on this page. You have to use the information from the image and your own geographical knowledge of green belts. The questions are open to your own interpretation. There isn't any real right or wrong answer, so don't worry about it. Me and your teachers will just want to see your geographical understanding and reasoning, as I keep mentioning. Okay then, now I'm going to give you some guidance on the following questions and show you what would be a model answer. The first question is to state the meaning of urban sprawl. Now have a look at the marks given, and for this question it's 1, which should be telling you that you don't need to go into any great amount of detail and you only need to give a brief, concise answer. Imagine you're looking up urban sprawl in a dictionary and you would find a short summary of what it means. That's pretty much what you have to do for this question. Now, we covered urban sprawl earlier in the presentation and we said it is: urban sprawl is the controlled and unplanned expansion of urban areas. Now the next question is explain how greenbelt areas can have social benefits. This is a typical 4-mark question in a geography exam, and as you can probably work out, based on the marks, you're going to have to write more than you wrote in the first answer to get those 4 marks. But, and this is important, don't fall into the trap of thinking that just because you write loads of information that you're going to get those 4 marks. Marks are given for quality, not quantity. You need to ensure that your answer is detailed, structured, and using good geographical terms. Remember earlier when we covered an explain question, and we said we need to show an understanding of why or how something has happened. And in this case, we're showing the understanding of how a green space can have social benefits. Go back to your work on social benefits covered on slide 3 to help you. Again, you will see that in an explain question, I have used a simple model of point and explain and then repeated this. Really make sure you are letting the person know that you absolutely understand why or how something has happened. So for example, one social benefit of greenbelt is that they provide recreational opportunities for people. This gives people the opportunity to keep fit and active. Green spaces also provide a social space where people can meet up. This can improve mental well-being and community relations. Now our final question for this part of your project is: to what extent do you agree that greenbelt land should be protected from further housing development? It is a 6-mark question, so again the amount you are expecting to write has increased. So has the level of detail and understanding you are expected to demonstrate. Now you can be forgiven for thinking that a question sounds really complicated and long, and on first reflection I guess you'll be right, but what we need to do here is break it down into smaller manageable chunks. This is a really good way of ensuring that your 6 to 9 mark answers in geography are structured right. You don't miss out anything, and importantly you're answering the question the way it needs to be answered. Let's first start with the command words, and in this case it is to what extent. Now to what extent questions are asking you to make a judgment about something. How much do you agree with what I'm about to say? For example, to what extent do you agree that Fortnite is better than FIFA? You're being asked how much do you agree that Fortnite is better than FIFA? Now you don't have to completely agree or disagree with a statement. In questions like this, you're allowed to be somewhere in the middle. You might think that Fortnite's better, but you still enjoy playing FIFA, or vice versa. I actually think FIFA's better, but sometimes I play Fortnite. So remember, to what extent is asking you to make a judgment about a topic, and the topic in this case is further housing development on greenbelt land. Should there be? Shouldn't there be? Let's again break this down and think about the words greenbelt land. We know this is land protected from development because it is socially, economically and environmentally beneficial. Further is another important word in this question. We know this means more or increased. And finally, housing development, which just translated to building more houses. The last thing to mention for a to what extent question is that you have to finish with a conclusion, which is a brief summary of your argument and reasoning right at the end. So let's give it a go. Now, I've started by demonstrating my understanding of the topic and mentioning my opinion, There is a need to build 3 million new homes in the UK because there is a housing shortage, and I strongly agree that there should be more development on the Greenbelt. Now, some of you might be sitting there going, well actually sir, I don't think there should be more development. And you wouldn't be wrong. With a question like this, as long as you can justify your answer and give explanation and sound reasoning, you're right whatever way you argue. Yes or no. It's absolutely fine. Then you can see that I've started to develop my arguments. Notice that I have not just listed points. I've developed them and given some detail. Without these homes, there will be social problems such as increased homelessness. Economically, it is likely that house prices will also increase without these homes, which will financially impact families. Furthermore, not all Greenbelt land is actually worth protecting. For example, some land doesn't have any recreational or agricultural value, so it's not given any social or economic benefits. Therefore, it makes sense to develop this land. Then I've given a counter-argument, which is important because it demonstrates that you are exploring the whole topic and giving a well-balanced and well-argued summary. However, it could be argued that all Greenbelt land can benefit the environment. It also provides habitats for wildlife and can absorb dangerous atmospheric pollutants. Then I finish with my conclusion, which, as I've said, is just a brief summary of my argument and making sure to once again highlight my overall opinion on the matter. In conclusion, I strongly agree that there should be further development as the social and economic benefits outweigh the environmental costs. Now, that concludes this part of your research project. Remember to always read the information given to you and start asking geographical questions and demonstrating that detailed understanding. Good luck with your project and have a great summer.